It's time for Coffee on the Coast Book Banter. Good afternoon and welcome to Coffee on the Coast. I'm your host this afternoon, Tina Prigge. I'm so excited to welcome back librarian Therese Horstketter from the Manitowoc Public Library. Hi, Therese.
Hi, good to see you again.
So good to see you. And it is always such a happy day when we get to talk about books and book recommendations. I know that one of the books that you're going to recommend today just showed up in my available list. So I'm pretty
Oh,
excited.
nice,
Yeah.
nice.
So you've got actually 7 recommendations for us today. So I think we should dig right in and find out
Sure.
some good reads. All right, we're talking reads on the coolest coast. We packaged these 3 together. It's interesting, Therese, because, in previous episodes together, we've said, oh, there's some similarities between these titles or,
Yeah.
topics. And if you look at these 3, you can definitely see the similarities.
Oh,
Tell,
yeah.
let, tell us about these books from Chelsea Kane.
These are an old series. They're from roughly 2009, 2010 when they started. And these are actually the first 3 of, I believe there are a total of 6 in the series. But these are the 3 that I really loved. And they are about a detective, Archie, and he is dealing with, as they list her, a beautiful serial killer named Gretchen Lowell. And she tends to, which you would just see from a blurb, kidnap or take people and keep them held and tortured for a good amount of time before actually being done with them. And along the way, Archie had been one of those people. So they have quite a connection. And I don't know if it's the good and bad, the give and take of this relationship, but this becomes something consuming for him. And so a good deal of the book is about his relationship, both with her, even if he's not with her, and also with his family. And then there is a reporter who ends up involved also that he ends up having a relationship with. And not to describe them really any further, there are things that you think, good or bad, or you're not sure what they're going to be. But so it just was very unique. I loved the series when I read it, and I did read the whole series, but I really wanted to highlight these first 3 because I thought they were just, the best chunk of it with everything new before it continued.
Right. So this is an ongoing series. New books are
Right.
being released.
No, actually, it ended at 6. I believe it is 6 books that were just about Archie and Gretchen.
Okay.
And after that, she had some others, but she, from what I can tell, went away from adult books and went into more like children's or young adult after that. But this was a really good series
As an
and
author, she
something
probably
that's,
needed that palate cleanser, right? Like
yeah,
after these
that might be.
heavy, dark topics.
Yeah,
Okay,
because
so
this is a really heavy relationship here. Yes,
and those characters you said carry on through the books. It didn't
right,
wrap up. Okay.
right.
So what order would somebody read these 3 in?
The first one is, just want to make sure, Heartsick is the very first one. Sweetheart is the second. And then Evil at Heart is the third.
Okay, interesting. And I just want to read the screen blurb that's on Heartsick. On the cover, it says, a distinctive and disturbing novel that blurs the lines between suspense fiction and psychological suspense. Oh my gosh.
It it is a very good. I mean, you read a lot of mysteries or even suspense, but then this one where they actually become so involved and attached to each other in different ways. Yeah, it's really I thought a really good series.
Okay. Can a person pick up midway through the series, or should they really start at the beginning
I
and
would start at the
chronologically?
beginning for sure. Yep.
Okay. And do the new books carry on with the same kind of cover art theme with the little tear?
I don't know if it's quite the same. I know they still have them in the series, but and they don't keep that heart and the sweetheart and evil at heart. They come out with some different titles.
Okay. Well, it sounds like perfect. A psychological suspense thriller just in time for Halloween.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
Okay, I'm going to pull up another one. It's got a great cover and a pretty interesting title. It's The Coldest Girl in Cold Town.
That one I just finished reading, and from what you would expect, just looking at the very pale skin and this time of year and cold, it does have to do with vampires. And vampires pretty much are the norm now in when this is taking place. Doesn't really give a year, doesn't even give, from what I remember, the very specific age of the main character, but she is involved with, well, everybody knows that vampires exist. They have cold towns where people who are infected have to go and live. And you can pretty much never leave a cold town once you get there. But of course, there's always the instead of you can never, things can happen. But vampires are just a regular part of life. It's like there are two daytimes. You know, there's a daytime for people, and then there's nighttime, which is when the vampires are just out and doing whatever they would like during the day. And so it's very interesting. It's a big book, it's a pretty thick book, and actually is young adult. Holly Black has others that are very good. She wrote, though, the Spiderwick Chronicles, which are kids' books.
Oh, sure.
And so, yes, so she's in a lot of different directions, but this was very good. I thought it dealt a lot different. It wasn't that, oh, it's a vampire kind of thing. It was more how the lives are involved together and
Oh,
people who become vampires, and it's a different, there still is, of course, the drinking blood and the whole evil vampires and stuff, but it's a different take on it.
okay. Intrepid viewer Tim Gadzinski would like to know, Therese, is this a nonfiction title?
If you would like to believe it is, sure.
So that's a good question, though, as far as so the vampires are kind of corralled in these cold towns, but what do they
Yes.
do about their feeding habits?
Well, they have different ways of dealing with this, and one thing to mention is that people, instead of having to be bitten, actually have like shunts placed that they can open a little, we'll say a spigot, and drain into a cup, so they don't have to be bitten
Interesting. So it's
and
kind of
don't
like
have to
donating
become a
blood.
vampire. Right, right. So, but this has, right in the beginning, you're going to find out, well, I don't think it ruins anything, that her mother became a vampire. And she has a couple of sisters and a father that is living, and just what her family dealt with just from that part of it. But the beginning of the book is that she wakes up after a party, and she's the only one alive in the house. There are a lot of bodies, and it goes from there.
So would you say overall, is this book, very heavy? Is it kind of a lark? Like, how does it approach this topic?
I think it approaches it more so as something you have to deal with and deciding how you can deal with it. And like I said, it's not a jump scare kind of book. It's, you make your way through. There are some surprises with things that happen, but I thought it was good. Just a different take on it.
Interesting. And along the way here, Therese, we've talked about other books that have been sort of pandemic related, kind of,
Hmm.
how do you do? And this is like a whole different kind of pandemic, right?
Right,
If like a
right.
great portion of the population are vampires.
Yeah, when you think that people have to be segregated. I don't know that that's the correct word, but that they are put into these different areas, and that's it. You're going to stay there. There are some lucky ways to get out of there, but that'll
Yeah.
be in the book.
That kind of quarantine. So John Green has a comment on the cover and it says, "No one writes like Holly Black. Cold Town is one of my all-time favorite fantasy novel settings."
It was a good book. I said it's a big read, but I think people will like it. If you're into something like that, you're going to get into this pretty well.
Awesome. Again, vampires is the topic. Perfect as we approach Halloween weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what else is next. What about this? The greatest beer run ever. This says it's a memoir of friendship, loyalty, and war by John Chick Donahue and J.T. Malloy.
This is a preview. I have not read it, but it's on my list. It's on my whole list, I think. And this one, we can tell Tim is nonfiction. And it is actually, I'm going to read part of this here. One night in 1967, 26-year-old John Donahue was out with friends drinking in a New York bar. They thought of their friends who are basically in Vietnam. So they are far from loved ones. And they decided there has to be some way to let them know people are thinking about them and caring about them. And couldn't we somehow just bring something? And he did. And apparently, it says a day later, he was on a cargo ship headed to Vietnam, armed with Irish luck and a backpack full of alcohol to stop by friends and cheer them up along the way.
Oh my gosh.
I think it's going to be an amazing book, and it's a movie that's coming out, I think.
Okay, so that blurb at the bottom, soon to be a major motion picture, is true.
I
It's
think
kind of
it
real
is
time.
coming out soon. And
Oh,
I
wow.
just thought, when I read it, you just had to see what it was about. And when I saw it, I thought, I think that's going to be an amazing, really good book.
Yeah. And Tim said, so it's about vampires, like all good nonfiction. Well, and that's an amazing story. And I can't say that I've heard a story quite like that, right? Where somebody kind of willingly puts themselves in harm's way, but for love of friends to do something kind of cool and unexpected.
So I can't believe, I can't wait to hear just what kind of stories there are with him going, because, movie's out now starring Zac Efron. Okay, I knew that it was soon, but thank you. And so I'm looking forward to both. I'm really looking forward to reading the book that you get the words from him.
Yeah.
And then see it on the big screen.
So now a major motion picture, read the book first, then check it out. So do you think this might be on the future list for book and a movie?
I don't actually, unfortunately, with the theater closing, we aren't doing that now. It's really sad to us. People are going to miss it, but we don't have a definite plan in place. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
But,
well, so anyone out there that's watching that wants to support the Manitowoc Public Library and educational programming in this community, you could buy the theater and gift it to the Manitowoc Public Library, and great things could happen. Just going to plant that seed.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, let's talk about 56 Days by Catherine Ryan Howard. On the cover it says, bloody good.
It is good. It was one that I really, really wanted to read after I read the blurb. It is two people who meet just as the pandemic is starting. And so they barely know each other. They've been out somewhat. Can't say that it's immediate great romance, but they would like to get to know each other better yet. They feel there's enough there. But it says 56 days ago, they met in a supermarket. 35 days ago, Oliver, decides they should live together to get to know each other. And today, detectives arrive at his apartment to discover a decomposing body inside. So just those three sentences pretty much were like, okay, Yeah, and it was very
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
Yeah, and 56 days. Let's just quickly do the math. That's not even quite 2 months.
right. And it's one of those that you will start to wonder, like, why did she say it like that? That doesn't quite, you're getting your own little vibes that things are not all what each of them is saying, and you don't know what body's going to be there. And yeah,
So
so,
you so
uh,
you're not even saying that it's her body
right,
necessarily.
right.
We have to
Nope,
read the book
a
to find out.
body.
A body.
A body
Okay.
is there. We can't say who
Are
unless
there
you read it.
vampires?
Well, I don't really know now that I've read another book about it, and they could be doing other things. We don't really know. There could have been vampires here, for all we know.
Is this a
Yeah.
big book or is it a quick read?
No, it's I would say your average 300 some pages probably. Yeah.
And it says she's an internationally best-selling author.
Yes.
Fiction?
Um, I'm thinking mostly fiction. She has one newer book coming out, but I don't have the name of it noted. I did make note that she has something coming out, though. And yeah, I liked her writing, and it does go back and forth between the characters. So they're each kind of see, now he's imagining there were vampires, but
Right?
we don't know for sure.
It's one of the things I love about these conversations with you, Therese, about these books is it leaves you to imagine these whole stories, like they kind of unwind, right? It,
Yeah,
and then,
that was
but
a good one. Yeah.
my mind never does the story justice. When I finally get
Oh,
to reading the book, that I'm like, oh
yeah,
wow,
yeah. There are a lot of, like I said, there's little things in it. Not that it always gives you all the clues for it, but that each one is saying, like, he saw her how many times at the supermarket, and then a couple chapters later, she's doing that and saying about how she sees him at the supermarket. And so you're never sure who's looking for who, or is it really an accident, or
uh,
what's happening.
how did you feel when you closed the cover on this book when you were
It
finally
was
done?
pretty good. hmm I didn't give it a 10, but I would say an 8 or 9. Yeah,
And were you creeped
yeah.
out? Like, were you like looking under the bed before you went to sleep, or it's not that bad?
No, no, not quite that. It's more the working through it and figuring it out, and yeah,
Oh, like a
yeah,
mystery.
it was
Okay,
good.
cool. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, it
So you've
was
got
good.
one more vampire selection for us. Let's check this out. No, no vampires
Yes,
involved.
no, no. Yes, that is a flying vampire on the cover, and we're just no. This one, I truly have to say, I picked this book up because of the cover. I was walking by and saw it, and I just picked it up to see what it was about. And it is about a family living in Maine. The dad is a fisherman, and he is injured in an accident on his boat and has to be away from the family at a hospital where they cannot easily visit. And this is truly, um, you just feel like you're living with this family and going through it there. There are teenagers there that this mom is alone with, dealing with teenagers, and
Good luck.
and her husband and her husband being away, and then other people somewhat involved in the mix that are not an everyday thing, but they can easily take over your everyday with how they're involved. Yes, vampire fishermen. Yes, because vampires like to give away fish.
Because they're not going to eat them.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
we got a little
Yes.
sidetracked. There are no vampires in Landslide.
No,
This is
no
a
vampire. It
novel by
is,
Susan Conley.
yeah. And somebody wrote at the beginning, the blurb that on the one page is this beautiful, beautiful portrait of a family in a fishing village in Maine is a fresh look at marriage, motherhood, and the wondrous inner lives of teenagers. So it's what the boys are going through as well as the parents during all of this happening. So It's how do I want to say it? It doesn't have any really big jumps. It is really you're living with this family and going through what they're going through. And it was kind of a quieter book, but I thought it was a good book.
Maybe good
Yeah.
after all the vampires.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Tim said, except the fish, they're vampires.
Oh, okay.
But there's a quote on the cover by Lily King, and it says, Susan Conley has knocked it out of the park. Funny, moving, and deeply insightful.
Yep. Yeah, I thought you're just kind of immersed in this family. And yeah.
Love
And
her.
sometimes I thought, you know, how you have feelings about, oh, I don't know if I'd feel that way as you're reading it yourself, but just going through it with her. And yeah,
Lovely. What a great selection you brought to us today, Therese.
thank you.
Are you currently reading a book? Do you have one in progress right
Nope,
now?
I get
Nope.
to start one, and I just took a couple home today. We'll see what we get started with. Yes,
Nice. Do you ever let Tim pick a book and just say, hey, how about this one? And then
never. He gets never, never.
You know, it would be interesting to hear, you know, like from Tim, what kind of a book is he reading, right? Because I suspect it might
Oh,
be different than
sure.
some of the recommendations we're talking about. Perhaps he's trends towards the vampires. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure. We'll see. Maybe he'll just tell us what he's reading with vampires or not.
he said you're smart not taking his recommendation. I just finished an interesting book by Jodi Picoult called The Book of Two Ways. And what was interesting is that the main character is an Egyptologist. So there's all this interesting description of being in Egypt and studying tombs at these necropolis and trying to figure out what the different hieroglyphs and stuff mean. So I just really enjoyed, you know, I
Yeah,
love language and that whole travel. You know, I really felt like, you know, there were some passages where I felt like I could feel the sand brushing over my skin.
nice.
Yeah. So thanks, Therese. Thank you for these great
Sure.
recommendations. Folks, these books are available at the Manitowoc Public Library. And if you're ever looking for a recommendation, you know who to ask. And let's see, Tim's got one final comment. He says, I'm actually rereading Interview with a Vampire for real because of the new series. It's all clear to me now.
Yeah.
Thanks for being my guest today. I always enjoy Book Banter with you, Therese.
Me too. This
Thank
was
you
fun.
so much. Thanks for watching Coffee on the Coast. This episode was Book Banter. We'll see you next time. Bye, all.